Have no fear. This double CGC unboxing is here. Hey there, today I have a pair of CGC unboxings, and in this video I'm going to open up two orders of CGC slabs that I won at auction on eBay. I don't do a ton of slab bidding on auctions from eBay unless it's from a very specific seller where I've had a kind of a routine experience and I kind of understand the flow of their auctions, the type of books that they're putting up. And I have won auctions from this comic book seller on eBay, the Comic Monster, in the past. And one of the reasons that I like bidding on their books is the timing of things. And what I mean by that is they will have their auctions end on either a Saturday or Sunday morning. And I am on the West Coast, and a lot of times these books start to end at around 6:30 a.m. Pacific. And so I will set a reminder to grab a cup of coffee, sit down, and look at those early morning auctions that are ending. And hopefully the Comic Monster doesn't see this, but I would highly recommend as a seller not to have your books at auction end when about half of your buying audience is probably asleep or waking up, or it's just not something that's really on the forefront of an active and avid comic book collector when they're looking for books at auction. But I think as somebody that does collect comics, you're always looking for angles and ways to find comic books to add to your collections at the lowest price possible. There's a couple of other reasons why I like the Comic Monster. I think in general, I have nothing but positive things to say in terms of the customer experience aspect. They ship books quickly, so they are one of the top-notch sellers on eBay as far as comic books go in terms of packing and shipping, customer service, all of that. I've always had positive experiences with this seller. So while I don't want to necessarily dwell on that or say that it's obvious, it's all very important. But I think that I'm looking more at the strategy side. But it is a seller that I have known to trust. And when I start to build up that trust with a seller, I end up buying more and paying more for their books just because I know what to expect. But from the collecting perspective, one of the other reasons is they will do a lot of CGC signature books from a lot of artists and creators, writers, and so forth, where they will have a lot of CGC signature series slabs available from a lot of creators that I follow and enjoy. So there's that aspect as well, where they're posting items up for auction that's right in my wheelhouse in terms of the titles and stories and creators and things that I like. And one of the things that's happening now is the CGC signature series fees in terms of the signing, the grading, and pressing, if you're going to add that too. It's starting to get to the point where it's just not making financial sense for me to send in my own books for those specific creators to sign my books. And maybe it's a strategy on CGC's part where they're trying to really weed out the, slab everything. I'm going to send every book I own by this cover artist, and it's going to be 50 books. Maybe they learned their lesson from McFarlane when he was literally drowning in comic books to sign and was there over the course of several months. And so maybe that's part of it, is really we're just trying to focus on the books that really should be signed. I don't really know exactly. I'm still working on that theory. But from that experience of looking at comic books to send in for a signature series event, I start to think about what those fees cost, and then I compare those fees to some of the books that the Comic Monster and other sellers on eBay are selling or auctioning, because sometimes you can win those books or even find buy it nows for less than what it costs just to get that creator to sign the book, let alone the cost of the book itself, the grading, fees, shipping, and all of the other costs associated to acquiring that yellow labeled comic. I want to get to the unboxing here, but I just wanted to share that with you in terms of why am I focused on this seller? What are the types of books that I'm looking for? Why did I pay for these? And a lot of these books that I did one slabbed, It has to do with a story that I read and I enjoyed, and oftentimes I will want to invest more in a comic if I've read the story and I've enjoyed it. And when I say invest, it doesn't necessarily mean, hey, I read the comic, it's a great story, I think it's going to be valuable or interesting going forward. Some of it is just as a collector, I want to collect more of the stories that I read and enjoy just for the sake of ownership and not for the sake of investment. So please understand that too. It's not always around, I read this book on day one and I think it's going to take off and it's going to get optioned. It's really just, I enjoyed it and I want to kind of surround myself with graded copies or the artwork or signed books based on something that I enjoy, just from a collecting standpoint. So I talk a lot about adding comic book value to your collection, and this is not necessarily one of those, but there are a couple of examples around that signature series that I did end up acquiring, not to spoil the unboxing, but I think if you stick around, you'll kind of see what I paid for these books, and when you compare it to what it really costs to acquire them if you were to go from buying the book raw through the signature series process, I think the numbers just make sense at this point to start looking at already slabbed copies instead of signing up for that signature series submission. All right, it's time to unbox these two orders from the Comic Monster and see which CGC slabs I picked up. Okay, all of the 8 slabs are out of the packing. Again, very well packed. Thank you, Comic Monster, for in one of the boxes, it was kind of the box in the box where you take a small priority box, put the slabs inside, and then put that in a larger medium flat rate box. And you'll see here too that each of these slabs are protected by this USPS priority mail padded envelope. And if you do a lot of shipping, you can get these for free. So if you are in the market for selling comics and selling slabs, this is a really cheap and effective way. These are padded inside with their own bubble wrap. And then just for good measure, they had wrapped the stack of the 4 slabs in another layer of bubble wrap, and then the box, and then another box. So really nicely well packed, but also very clever and a smart way to use USPS packing materials without having to pay for a giant roll of bubble wrap and so forth. So let's go ahead and take a look at what I picked up. All right, so the first slab is World Tree #1, and this is the David Aja cover B, essentially the main variant cover for World Tree. And for some reason, this is not interesting. it's not desirable. And I will say, this was the story I was talking about that I read, starring the main character Fear, and really enjoyed the first issue and plan on reading it on a regular basis. But this variant cover B is just not selling very well. It's not very popular. But I'm a big fan of Asia's work, and really love the whole like pixelated look here. So I'm all for this one, and the fact that I got it at a really good price. I mean, this is a 9.8 white page blue label of a modern comic, yes, but for a lot less. I would argue almost half of what it would cost to get this book graded. So if the story takes off and people go back and they're like, I'll take any variation of the first issue, then I think I got a pretty nice deal here. Right. I am going to cheat and save the signature series books for last. I did pick up some of them. I'll make you wait, but the next one that we've got here is another World Tree book from one of my favorite artists, and this is World Tree #1, and this is the Jenny Frison variant cover C in a 9.8 white pages. This was one that as soon as I saw this was coming out, and frankly, before I knew anything about this series, this was the cover that I saw. I loved the fact that she worked with Tinian on Something Is Killing the Children and worked on a number of those issues. And when I saw that she was also on World Tree #1, I was intrigued to pick up the book regardless, just because I'm a Friesen collector, but also became intrigued with the story at this point because of this cover. Now, I want to stop here too, because right now, Jenny Friesen is scheduled to have her own signature series session with CGC, and the cost, the sort of the entry cost to get a basic comic signed and graded is $85. So this is where it kind of becomes interesting, where like, would I even send this book in and let them crack the slab? It's a 9.8. She signs it. Hopefully it's re-encased, same grade, 9.8. Or should I just wait and find this on the market already signed? And so that's kind of part of what I'm thinking about is, this is a 1 in 10, but I didn't pay sort of 1 in 10 sort of money, certainly for a first issue. And I'm just trying to run the numbers through my head, where it probably doesn't make sense to send a book like this in, even though this would look gorgeous with a signature, maybe right here, or maybe in green ink across the top or something like that. It would look great, but it just doesn't make financial sense. So I figured I'll just go ahead and pick up the Blue Label version of this book because I love it. And to me, it is the memorable cover that first got me interested in World Tree. Right. And we're going to keep going with World Tree. You'll see this as a theme throughout. This is World Tree #1, and this is cover A. It's the original cover A, and what I mean by that is this is the recalled version. So the quick story is that the original printing of World Tree had a couple of covers, this one and the Bill Sienkiewicz 1 in 25 incentive, that were deemed too dark and difficult to kind of see what's going on. Fear actually has a number of items here in the background, and you can't, I mean, even if you could see this cover up close, just like I have, like, you can't actually see what's on the cover in the background. And there's quite a bit of detail. So they've corrected this, they lightened the cover up, they reprinted it. There's second prints, third prints, there's some that's got like some neon ink and things are highlighted, and you can really see what this character has here in the background in this bedroom. And it says on the cover, recalled due to coloring error. So this is one of those cases where, again, I wanted to make sure that I had the recalled version, and I have to go back with my raws just to see which ones I have. But you can clearly tell which one is recalled, just because you can only really make out the main character here with some basic background elements where she's highlighted in green from the glow of the laptop. And this one is selling pretty well because I think that people are snatching up the recalled versions before they kind of disappear off the market. But also I think it's because people don't necessarily know which one is the recalled version. They maybe have some raws sitting around. So I would recommend checking those out if you are a collector, if you have some raw issues of this one, is to take a look, because the recalled ones are worth a little bit more money than the standard version. So there was a corrected version that was sent out again, and I think a lot of the stores waited for that corrected version and then sent those to customers. And I don't know what happened with the recalled. I don't know if they were sent back to Image or people kept them, but I'm not so concerned with like print numbers or anything like that. I just wanted to make sure I had a copy of the recalled one to add to my now growing World Tree collection. Okay, I got another Jenny Friesen. This is cover C. This is the 1 in 10 of World Tree #1. Kind of loaded up on this one for all the same reasons that I mentioned before. But I'll talk a little bit about my bidding strategy. What was nice is this is essentially these two orders, 4 slabs each. The auctions were a week apart. And so what I ended up doing was looking at auctions that I lost and auctions that I won with the Comic Monster. And then I went in early a week later when they had some of the same books, and I put in my winning bid, or maybe I got outbid by $1 or something. I continually get sniped, even at 6:30 in the morning. I'll get sniped by $1 and lose an auction. But I would keep track of what my bids were. And it's not so much like, well, can't you do that with anything? Just go back and look at sold listings. Yes, but I'm specifically looking at what I'm willing to pay. So yes, there's fair market value, but I've already done my analysis and I figure out what am I willing to bid on and pay for this book. And what I ended up doing was I won one of these in the first batch at a specific price, and that was the highest. That was the most that I paid. And then I added that bid because I obviously bid on it and I won for that amount. So of course I'm willing to pay that much for this book. And then I put that number in ahead of time. I didn't wait till the last second on the other two. And then I just sat back and watched. And I ended up winning both of the other two. Spoilers, yes, there's a third one of these in here, for less than what I paid for the first one. So it was almost like people were bidding and kept getting outbid and then realized, all right, somebody's got a high bid on this, I'm out. And so that was an interesting kind of side effect for winning the first one, was I didn't realize I would get two more a week later for less than what I paid for the first one. So there is that too, to keep track of what you're paying, what you're bidding, what's your max bid, things like that. And that's kind of nice with the Comic Monster, is they'll consistently have the same books up available at auction for sale, so that you can kind of start to create your own price guide or value guide, if you will, for some of these books. Okay, so speaking of, in that same story, I got another copy of World Tree #1, the cover B. Same thing, I put in my bid that I won in the first week into the second week, and I ended up winning this for the same amount. So pretty lucky there. And it saved me a lot of time. I didn't really have to go through spreadsheets and analysis. I knew what I paid for it the first week. I put that in to the second week and won it for the same amount. So it ended up working out. And you probably guess what this one is. It is that third copy of World Tree #1, variant cover C, the 1 in 10 by Jenny Frison. So pretty cool seeing all three lined up here like that. Just a gorgeous cover by Frison. Really happy to add those to my collection. And I think based on what I paid for them, I really thought it was a good deal. When you talk about it being an incentive cover, yes, probably the number of copies out there is pretty high, so it's not a super rare 1 in 10, but nonetheless, an incentive cover, Frison on the cover, a Tinian book that's #1 issue, and to get it completely graded, slabbed, 9.8 shipped to me, I feel like you're almost kind of getting the comic itself for almost next to nothing, and I love grabbing slabs like that, especially in books that I'm really interested in. Okay, the last two books that I saved were the Signature Series books. I won 2 of them. You know, it's not any big top secret. It's really just around, as I said earlier, doing the math and thinking about what it would actually cost you from acquiring the book, getting the book graded, paying for the signature. You know, a lot of times if you're considering a signature series, you might throw on the CCS pressing on top of that just to be safe. All of those costs and fees just add up really fast. So it's always awesome to get a yellow labeled book for what I would consider to be kind of the price of what, you know, I would want to pay just for a blue label. And the first of the 2 Signature Series books I picked up, another World Tree book. This is World Tree #2. This is #2's variant, cover C, and this is a 1 in 25 with cover art by David Romero. So James Tinian, another great creation of his. This is his story. But if you remember another series that he did, Department of Truth, issue 2 of Department of Truth featured that really creepy incentive cover where there's a baby on the cover and it looks like he's part of a meal or something like that. And people got creeped out about it, so much so that it became very popular. This is the same artist. I thought that this cover was also very creepy, very, very awesome artwork here by Romero. 1 in 25, issue 2, and it is signed by James Tinian and Fernando Blanco, the writer and artist on World Tree. And I was hunting this 1 in 25 just as a raw copy in hopes to get it graded a 9.8. And when I saw that of all sellers, the Comic Monster had this available as a 9.8 Signature Series book for a what I think is a very affordable price when you're thinking about signatures and everything that I've been talking about in this video. I felt like this was a no-brainer, and I had to have this one, and I'm really happy that I won it. Now, I promise you, this last book is not a World Tree book. However, it is signed by one of the artists that I keep talking about, and the artist that has an upcoming signature series session with CGC. And yes, you guessed it, it's Jenny Frison. This is Catwoman 44, the variant cover of Catwoman 44 with cover art by Jenny Frison. And it is not on the label, but I think it's also the first appearance of Red Claw, so there is a Catwoman character, and this is technically her first appearance. It's not on the CGC label, so that's unfortunate. But man, what a gorgeous cover here, signed by Frison, only Frison on this one. And I was really thinking about what it would cost to get a book just like this. This is an open order cover, a gorgeous cover. If you're a Frison collector, you have this book, you're thinking about getting it signed, but for the price that you'd have to pay for this signature, if you're going through CGC, you're better off waiting for a convention or local show. Try and find out if she travels or attends different shows to see what her price is there, because just sending it through CGC, it just doesn't make financial sense. I've shared with you what I paid for these books, so you can kind of see where I was able to acquire this for less than that signature series grading fee costs. Now, this isn't necessarily a spec book or a massive Frison key, but this is an extremely well done cover. I am collecting her run on Catwoman. So for me as a collector, I love this, and I love the fact that she's signed this book. This is my second Catwoman Frison Signature Series Yellow Label book, but it would cost me over $1,000 if I were to send in my full run of Catwoman Frison covers just to get them signed. And it's not that I'm complaining about being left out. I'm just they're just not making it easy and affordable. And that's where I look back at sort of the McFarlane experience, where there were so many requests, and I wonder if they're just raising the price to just keep the sheer amount of submissions down, because Frison is extremely popular. So you can imagine if her signing fee was like $35, yeah, you might want to consider sending this book in, even if it's a break even, because you're a collector and you're getting this signed. But when you're getting into $85 or $105, when you're adding in CCS fees on top of that, you're talking about around $100 just to get what I would consider to be kind of a common book, like an open order book that doesn't have a lot of heat on it. It's almost like you'd never be able to get this signed, is my point. So I'm really happy. I feel very fortunate that I was online early enough where I could add that gorgeous Jenny Frison cover of Catwoman 44 signed by her. I'm going to place it right next to my other Catwoman issue that she signed, and I'm extremely happy and very lucky to own these books. So let me know what you think. Do you feel like these signature series offerings from CGC, are these still popular? Do you feel like they're kind of outpricing your average collector? It does feel just a little bit too expensive for me personally in today's market, and this is why on the aftermarket I'm looking for signature series books like these that kind of fall through the cracks, and picking them up for a lot less than what it would cost to get the artist to just sign them outright. Thank you for watching, happy collecting, and see you next time.